The best news for the Philadelphia 76ers this season, Paul George has no structural damage and is only supposed to miss 1 or 2 games. So there is a glimpse of hope for the Philadelphia 76ers, who currently sit at the worst record in the NBA.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? You're locked on with the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm Kayla Santiago, along Keith Pompey, here each and every single day. And Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhoodgold.com/gold. So Paul George, no structural damage, is only expected to miss 2 games. What does this mean for the Philadelphia 76ers? And then we're going to preview everything between the Sixers and the Nets. Brooklyn also with some injuries, especially down low in the paint. And then the Philadelphia 76ers, well, a glimpse of hope, but it doesn't look too promising with them having the worst record in the entire league at 2-12 right now. So Paul George, the good thing about this situation, and I'm happy to say it, that there is no structural damage. He looks like he's going to be okay and return in 2 games. The biggest question is, can this team get some momentum so then he comes back? There's not too much pressure on him. I think the momentum starts with the Brooklyn Nets. I feel the Philadelphia 76ers can sneak a win out here. I know we've been saying that with teams that were worse than the Nets coming in, but I see the 76ers finally stepping up against Brooklyn. Keith, PG, the news comes out, no structural damage. This is, with all things considered, for the Philadelphia 76ers this season.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's a win for them. I mean, the thing is, you think about it, it's 2 games that he's going to miss. The one thing, again, I'm not as optimistic as you are, and the reason being is because we've seen this before. I mean, the concern to me is, you have a couple guys who, like Nick Claxton, he's a guy who's listed as questionable, right? So if he can play, it could get a little dicey. I mean, so and I just don't say, but we'll talk about that more. The one thing that I'll talk about with the injury is, when we look at it, typically he had the same injury that he had 6 weeks ago.
Right.
The second time around is often the worst time. And the fact that they're saying that he's going to be reevaluated within like 3 days, I think that's a good sign. I wouldn't be surprised if he missed a couple more games or maybe one more game. Because who do they play? They play the Houston Rockets on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. So to me, I wouldn't be surprised if he also missed that game, just because it gives him more time to recuperate and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's a whole lot better than what it was before, when they said a week out and it ended up being 3 weeks. So yeah, this is a bonus right here. That's a bonus.
Yeah, maybe you bring him back in the Pistons game. And it's funny to look at the Detroit game, because when they were playing the Pistons the first time around, we both said, well, maybe this is a game to bring back Joel Embiid and Paul George to have them play against a team that might not be very good. Well, they're better than the 76ers at this point. So maybe that was a bad analysis on our part. But you look at it right now, I think my biggest worry with this entire thing is that, yes, there's no structural damage there, and Paul George is to be reevaluated in 3 days, which is a very good sign for the Philadelphia 76ers. But it is on that same knee that he injured throughout the preseason. So do you see Paul George coming out maybe a little bit timid when he comes back? Because we've seen it with Joel Embiid early on in the season, worried about that injury, the mental part of the game. I know PG has been through some injuries, and this has been kind of the storyline at the back end of his career here. But at the same time, that mental game has to be tough when in preseason you went down because of it. You're going down once again, and then you're expected to come back and be the third top scorer. And not only that, but help turn this team around that is in an extremely deep hole right now.
That's a great question, because I got initially I want to say yes, right? Because that's the thing that typically you are, no matter who you are, you've had injuries, you're a little initially you're timid, But then you look at a guy like him who's been injured all the time throughout his
Yeah.
career, and it becomes like, after a point, you become numb to it a little bit, right? It's kind of like, but I think with him, the big thing is that because he has so many injuries, like, you can say he will be timid, or you can say he'll be cautious enough to a point where he won't come back too soon. It's kind of like if he comes back within a couple of days, it's like, oh, he honestly believes that his injury is past him, that he won't re-injure it. I feel like with him, if he feels like he's going to if he's scared to test it out, then he's going to take another game off. That's just how I feel. And the good thing, the thing is that honestly, that makes a lot of sense that he is going to be reevaluated after these next couple of days, because the next step is, can he practice on it?
Mhm.
Like, I assume that they'll probably have off on Monday, right? And then they'll practice on Tuesday, and they'll test it out just to see how it feels on Tuesday. And if it doesn't feel right, then he won't play on Wednesday.
I look at it too. We've touched on this early on in the season. Well, why rush Paul George back when Joel Embiid had a lot of time to come back? It's one of those situations again where you say, okay, you don't want to push him too soon when you might give somebody like Joel Embiid time to have that time to be able to come back and feel fully ready to go. For Paul George, it could be a little bit longer than we think, but once again, good news coming in. So he comes out of this season and it's really been up and down for him. We've seen some really good stuff, we've seen some not so good stuff. The consistency just hasn't been there, but that's really been a whole team thing for the Philadelphia 76ers. But this opened doors for Jaron McCain. Now, Jaron McCain being the top of the rookie list right now on a really bad team is probably not the greatest feeling in the world. I'm sure McCain wants to go out there and win some ball games, but how do you see this really elevating his game a little bit more? And especially with Tyrese Maxey not being 100%, because I think this could help Tyrese Maxey a bit get more comfortable playing on that hamstring.
Well, I mean, the one thing is, I think that Jared McCain, the fact that he has been the constant,
Yeah.
while all these guys were injured, he became a guy that they really had to depend on. I think that that helps from the standpoint right now that he has the confidence that he could go out there and get it done, right? I mean, right now, I think the biggest step for Jared McCain to go moving forward is, how does he mesh with the other guys? Like, when he plays with them, he's going to have to sometimes sacrifice his game, pick his spots, do certain things. But right now, with PG being out, um, he's going to be looked upon to be that guy. The one thing that gives me a little bit of, not concern, but I'm not going to say pause or anything like that, is Jared McCain has been phenomenal. But I think that the Paul George's presence really helped him out a little bit. Because if
Mm.
you notice, what he does is, there's several times when he comes in and he'll pass the ball to Paul. Paul will kick it right back out to him, and he'll get a bucket, he'll get a three, or he'll do something like that. So I think that the fact that Paul has been a selfless player has enabled him to thrive. But at the same time, right now we see the games that he's putting up, the numbers, that I feel like he's confident enough to carry this team, especially when someone's down. So that's going to help the Sixers tremendously.
I never thought at this point of the season we would be saying a rookie is looking to carry this team. It's a little bit crazy here for somebody we didn't even think maybe would have a lot of minutes going into the early portion of the season. And now he's been the best and most consistent player so far on the year. So Paul George, no structural damage, which is a good sign. He will miss 2 games and then be reevaluated in 3 days. That's the latest on Paul George coming back to the Philadelphia 76ers. But they do have a big game coming up against the Brooklyn Nets. Not necessarily a big game, you could call it, but any game going forward is big for the Philadelphia 76ers because they need to show some momentum and they need to show that they could possibly give some hope to people. I think there might be a glimpse of it coming up in this Brooklyn Nets game, and we're going to break it all down in just a moment. And we've all hit a point where we realized it was time to make serious money moves. Take control of your finances by using a Chime checking account with features like no maintenance fees, fee-free overdraft up to $200, or getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Learn more at chime.com/NBA. How it works, all you have to do is set up a direct deposit in your Chime account. After a qualifying direct deposit of $200+, Chime will notify you to enroll in Spot Me. With an activated debit card, Chime will spot you up to $200 when you exceed your balance. Your next direct deposit is applied to your negative balance. Chime never changes fees or interest for using Spot Me. Make your fall finances a little greener by working towards your financial goals with Chime. Open your account in just 2 minutes at chime.com/NBA. That's chime.com/NBA. Chime feels like progress, and some progress you could go to if you want to see some games. But for the best deal, go get those best deals at Game Time. Game Time, there's no better feeling than going to a live game atmosphere and having the opportunity to be a part of a live game. And Game Time allows you to do that with the Game Time app. You can download it that easy on your smartphone and be able to have an opportunity to go to these games for a very good price. So let's look at some of the action that might be coming up for these Game Time deals for you all, taking the guesswork out of everything. So there's a super deal going on right now for the Eagles versus the Ravens at $36 off. For the lower level, you will not want to miss out on that action for the Eagles and the Ravens. That's going to be a fun game. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. And you should all be two really good quarterbacks in Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets when Game Time. Download the Game Time app, make an account, and use code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first account, and make sure you use that code. It's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today, because what time is it? It is game time. So the Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers. This is a game where I think means a lot, but I also look at every game going forward saying it means a lot, because it does. The Sixers are the worst team right now in the entire league. They have shown no momentum. They played teams like the Memphis Grizzlies. They did the other night without 6 of their players, 2 of their big players, and Edie and John Morant, and still fell. So you need some consistency and something going on for this team. So my positivity comes from this, and I'm not over the moon positive about this matchup. Do I think the 76ers could drop this? Absolutely. But when you look at it right now, some injuries out there for the Brooklyn Nets, and I look at it in the middle. Nick Claxton has missed the last 3 games with some lower back strain as well. Finney Smith popped in and was able to have a pretty good game last time around with 15 points, averages just over 11 per game, along with 4.7 rebounds. He only stands in about 6'7", though, so I think Joel Embiid will have the edge on him. He is questionable for this game with an ankle injury. So that's where my hope comes a little bit from, Keith. When you look at it saying, okay, Joel Embiid finally showed up in a game, he could probably play really well against some injured guys down low. On the flip side of that, Cameron Johnson out for the Brooklyn Nets right now. He's averaging 18.1 points per game and just had 34 against the Hornets. So you can look at the positive side, which is very, very slim, or the fact that, yeah, the Nets aren't the best team in the NBA, but the 76ers are the worst team in the NBA, and Johnson has been balling out on the other side.
Yeah, and that's the problem. I mean, the one thing that gives me a little bit of pause right now, and if saying, okay, the Sixers are going to win or anything like that, is just because we looked at the last couple games that they played.
Yeah.
I mean, the last team that they played, the Memphis Grizzlies, they were without 3 starters and 6 players altogether. You know, the Miami Heat were banged up. They were without a couple of stars. And the same thing for the Orlando Magic. And the 76ers found a way to lose all of those games. The thing that gets me is that you have a guy, Cam Thomas, who's basically probable. I mean, he's listed as probable this game. He's also a guy that we know that can light it up in the right situations, right? He's one of those guys, especially when the team is undermanned and no one else is saying, hey, give me the ball. He's going to go out there and he's going to try to torch you. But here's something about this Brooklyn Net team that I think that a lot of people aren't really giving them a little bit of credit for. It's like, right now, yes, they're a team that They beat the Hornets. That snap a 3-game losing streak. But when you look at it, the teams that they lost their last 5 games, they lost 5 of their last 7 games. But those losses came to the Boston Celtics, the
Yeah.
Cleveland Cavaliers, the Boston Celtics again, and then the New York Knicks in the 2-game series. So they're looking, while the Sixers are looking at the Brooklyn Nets and saying, hey, we got the Brooklyn Nets. They're looking at it like, hey, we got the 76ers. This is going to be easy. But, Dennis Schroeder, I think, is a better point guard than people give him credit for. I just want to wonder who's going to be able to stop his ball penetration. Another thing is that gets to me is a game like today. Uh, Ben Simmons is going to want to come out and impose his will. I get it. People are going to say, okay, what is Ben going to get? 3 points, 4 points, 5 rebounds, whatever. You know what I mean? But I do think that he's going to try to come out there and have one of those motivation games, kind of sort of like it's not as fresh as when Paul George went to the Clippers, but we can't forget that was one of Paul George's best games, right? We can't
Hmm.
forget when Tobias Harris came here, that was one of his best games of the season. So I'm looking at it like maybe Ben Simmons, who is finally healthy, is going to say, guess what, Philly? You guys keep booing me. I'm going to try to stick it into the Sixers.
And a few things about the Nets too. When you look at it, the first time they played the Knicks on the 2 games they just played against them in that series, the first game they only lost by 2 against the New York Knicks, and then the last game they played against, they did fall by 10, but then were able to get back and win against the Hornets, as you just alluded to. But I'm not even looking at Ben Simmons' offense in this game. And I can't believe this is the topic of conversation. It's always going to be because he played in Philadelphia, but we're talking about the really positive stuff that Simmons can bring and how it can hurt the Sixers this time around. I mean, it's a crazy world we live in right now, and this is the topic of conversation. But Ben Simmons averaging just under 7 assists per game, 6.1 rebounds, 5.7 points. You look at that and you say, all right, okay, that's okay, not great. But his defense is always something that made him stood out. And you know that he can defend guards and the perimeter very, very well. He was one of the best defenders on the Philadelphia 76ers when he was on the team. So you have a banged up Tyrese Maxey right now, and you have Jaren McCain who's going off. And I have an idea there could be a possibility that Ben Simmons goes out there and defends the red hot Jaren McCain. And it could be tough for Jaren McCain if that matchup does happen. I'm not giving a ton of praise to Ben Simmons right here, but you have to look at his strengths, and his strengths are on the defensive side of the ball. And the 76ers just don't necessarily have the playmaking ability, the shooting ability, the guard ability to go up against somebody like a Ben Simmons on the defensive side of the ball. I hate to say it.
Yeah, and also don't be surprised because remember in the last couple of games that they played, they put him on Joel Embiid too as well.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Joel, we look at Joel and he did have 35 and 11 the last game that he played, but his mobility it looked improved, but it wasn't quite to the point that it was in seasons past, right? So, you know what I mean? Like to me, it's kind of like I can see him trying to, to get on Joel because you're right. Dorian Finney at 6'7", 225 pounds, if he plays, he's just not big enough to guard Joel.
Yeah,
Ben
no.
Simmons is a legit 6'10". Some people say he's taller. He's 240. I will see him at times, guarding guarding Joel Embiid and being flexible that way.
And that's the thing, he can guard 1 through 5. And we've been able to see it throughout his NBA career. He could go on Jaren McCain in the very next play, be on Joel Embiid. Expect to see that too, especially if Claxton is ruled out for this game. If Claxton is in, maybe you see Claxton on Joel, but also if Claxton's on the bench, maybe you see Ben Simmons rotate down to the 5 and defend Joel Embiid. I mean, he's a very good defender, and the 76ers have had trouble hitting shots, hitting open shots, hitting contested shots. The three-point shooting has been terrible so far this season. So it's not just Ben Simmons. There's other people and players on this team that are going to give the 76ers trouble, but we have to make the connection there, the brotherly love connection of Ben Simmons being back in Philadelphia once again. So it's going to be the Nets and it's going to be the Philadelphia 76ers as Philly tries to get their third win of the season. They are the worst record-wise in the NBA right now, but there could be some positives to that. Not many, but there was a team a few years ago that was able to turn their season around, but their leader was very, very different. We're going to talk about it in just a moment here. Don't go anywhere. Once again, you're on Locked On 76ers. And with Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial flavors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms do apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. So the Philadelphia 76ers right now at 2-12, the worst record in the NBA. They're right behind in the Eastern Conference, the Washington Wizards at 2-11. But there was a team a few years ago in the Lakers that started 2-10, so better than the Philadelphia 76ers, but still those two losses hunting them. And they were able to turn around and get to the conference finals. The difference is they had one of the best players of all time in LeBron James to help them turn it around. So Joel Embiid might be great right now, but he's not one of the best of all time. And the leadership quality like LeBron just isn't there for the Philadelphia 76ers. So what they need to do is they need to get a high seed. I don't think that's necessarily off the table, but what makes it seem like it is here, Keith, is that they haven't been able to win games consistently, and you need to win a lot of games going forward to be able to be in that conversation right now. Unfortunately, I do not think that they can turn this around like LeBron was able to do it for LA. I do still think the 76ers will make it to the playoffs, possibly that play-in tournament like they were a season ago, but LeBron did that. He was able to turn it around, but we are talking about LeBron James, and there is no other player like him in the game of basketball currently.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, but also that team, they did start the season at 2-10. But it seems like right after that at 2-10, they went on and won 3 straight in 5 of their next 6 games, right? So what that did is that made them 7-11, going into what was it, their 19th game of the season. Mm-hmm. So they start performing better. I feel like the 76ers now, again, they took advantage of their opportunities because those 3 straight games that they played, they looked at their schedule and they said, oh, we got the Detroit Pistons, a struggling Detroit Pistons squad. But first it was the Brooklyn Nets first. The Brooklyn Nets, the Detroit Pistons, and the San Antonio Spurs. They handled their business. The difference between that, you look at this 76ers team, they would go and they would play undermanned teams and they couldn't get it done, right? Now, the one thing that you said that you really alluded to was LeBron James' leadership, right? To me, that's the biggest thing. Because when you look at LeBron, what does he do? He holds people accountable. He says of things, right? He's the first one there, the last one to leave. Now, guess what? The Sixers had their little, meeting and things were said, whatnot. And then what does Joel Embiid come out and say? Instead of saying like, look, we had a team meeting. Everything that we had, I wish it would have stayed in there, but we had a team meeting. You know what? I'm going to be a better person, and just said that. But instead, what he says is whoever leaked it is a piece of, can't say it on this podcast, but he said that. So when he says something like that, we all understand the frustration he's going through. But at the same time, that's like you're saying, dude, you're supposed to be the leader of this team. This team is 2-12 right now. So, to me, in order for you to make that step, you have to be a leader. You have to be strong. You have to do things. That's what LeBron James did in their situation, right? Now, the thing is, you said they have to get a high enough seed, right? I feel like 2-10, and I know it's only 2-12, but that's a little different. When we look
Yeah.
at a team that's 2-12, right? You go back to the 1997 uh the 1997 Phoenix Suns. You go back to the 2004, 2005 Chicago Bulls. Now, both of those teams did eventually end up turning it around, but they both got swept or not swept. They both lost in the first round of the playoffs. So the question is, will the Sixers be, like you say, like the Lakers? Will they have that leadership quality that's going to enable to do it? Or are they going to be a team that gets to the first round of the playoffs and lose? And I feel like the one thing that's missing right now is that leadership from the star player, from the franchise player. And LeBron James has it. That's why he's, won multiple championships, why he's going to go down as possibly to go to this league. And, right now, I think Joel Embiid has to get that in order for the 76ers to be able to fulfill their goals. And here's something else, though. I don't really think that they're going to get out of the second round, even if they were healthy. I just don't see it the way the Cleveland Cavaliers are playing, the
Yeah.
way the New York Knicks are playing, and the way the Boston Celtics are playing. I just don't see it based off of their role players. I don't see a championship team.
I think they're in trouble if they don't get past the second round because you construct this team around Joel Embiid. You bring Paul George in, you give Joel the extension, and you say, okay, we are in win now mode. Absolutely, because Joel doesn't have too much left in his prime. It's kind of looking like already he struggled to get back from an injury, and we'll see how that progresses throughout the season. But you don't have the time or the luxury to say, we're going to go to the playoffs. We're going to go to the second round, and that's going to be that. Because what that turns into is this Joel Embiid's team anymore? Can he not get this team out of the second round? And then year after year, you blame it on Ben Simmons. You blame it on James Harden. This year, if this team does not make it there, you have to look at Joel Embiid. He is the only person left to look at. And then that clearly could be the end of the process when you're looking at it because it started with Joel Embiid. And it's unfortunate to look at that and say, okay, well, Joel is this phenomenal talent. We've seen Shaq say it. We've seen Charles say it. He could be the most dominant player in the NBA. Yes, he can. But the other best center in the NBA, and Jokic, has already won an MVP, has already won an NBA championship. Joel Embiid is not going to be talked about in that conversation until he gets past the second round and then wins an NBA finals. I don't see this team going to the finals, but I think this year they absolutely have to get past the second round, or you have the conversation of whose team is this going forward. Right now, it doesn't look good. So there's a lot of people saying that this season, do you kind of just fold in the towel or throw in the towel and say, well, let's rebuild at the end of the year? Does this team have a little bit more left in them to be able to push throughout the end of the year? I think they do. I think they have a chance to be able to make a run in the playoffs. I don't know about getting past the second round. I think it's too early to tell. But Keith, while we're on this path here, we talked about the Lakers being able to go to the Western Conference Finals that year as well, turning their things around with LeBron James. At this point, and I know it's early, but where do you realistically see this team going? You've already said that I don't think they're going to get out of the second round, but win total, where do you see that being for this team that is clearly struggling early on?
It's too hard for me to say that right now because we don't even
Yeah.
know how many games. Like, beforehand, I thought that when you asked me before, hey, do you think they're going to play more games than the Brooklyn Nets? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. Like we don't even know. Like they've only played 6 minutes and 9 seconds together,
Yeah.
with their core. So it's hard for me to put a finger on it right now. I mean, because look, dude, right now they're 2-12. Like, you look at teams like, the Phoenix Suns when they started off like 0-13 and they turned it around. They went like, what was it, 40 and 30. I mean, they went like 40 and something, like 29 or something, and they ended up what, 40 and 42, and they were the 7th seed. I mean, that could possibly happen if the Sixers, catch fire. But the problem is, like you said, I don't see a path for them anymore. And beforehand, like, let's think about it. When the 76ers were a pretty good team, I mean, early on, we weren't talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers, but now we're talking about the Cavs, right?
Yeah.
So, and the
Mhm.
Cavs are 16-1. While the Sixers are the surprise team at 2-12, the Cavs are 16-1. They played 17 games. The Sixers only played 14 games. So it's just like, it's hard for me to say. I would love to know how many games you think they would win. But for me, it's hard to say. It really is.
I might go in the low 40s range right now. I really, it would be tough for them to go below 40. There is a possibility just based on how bad they're playing. I would probably look at 42, 43 wins. I don't really even know if that's enough to get in that higher echelon of top four, top five, because as you alluded to, the Celtics, I mean, they look leaps and bounds above any other team right now. The Cavs are up there. The Knicks are up there. There's other teams that are going to make noise that the 76ers just haven't been able to touch. So I'm around that low 40s range right now. And if it goes lower than that, I mean, it's going to be a really tough thing to look at from an organizational standpoint on what you do next with this team as well. The Brooklyn Nets trio played 16 games together, and they were knocked out by the Bucks by a big toe on the line by Kevin Durant. Let's not forget that. So maybe there's a situation where the 76ers could get some of that magic. I don't think so right now, but it's still a long season, so we'll have to wait and see. One prediction, though, we can look at really quick, Keith, before we send things off. Who do you think will come out on top tonight, the Nets and the Sixers here coming tonight?
I mean, I got Brooklyn winning. I mean, I haven't seen anything from the 76ers. I mean, like, it's the same thing to me. I mean, if Paul George may have played and Maxey, and you said you got the big three, and you may say it, I would think that. But right about now, I have not seen anything from this team that gives me the confidence to think that they can go into a game against an undermanned squad and pull out a win. They just look old. I mean, not only is Paul George not playing, it's Kyle Lowry. As much as people talk about Kyle and they don't like him, he is one of the leaders on the team. So you have two integral players on the team not playing. I don't see them getting a win. Sorry.
I said there was a glimpse of hope earlier. That doesn't mean I think they're going to win, though. I don't think that they come out with a victory until they play the Pistons on November 30th. But what I do want to see is a competitive game and them go down to the wire with the Brooklyn Nets. So I'm going to take the Nets as well. I'm going to take the Nets 108, 106 and see if the 76ers can have some competitive value out there on the floor. Now they are at home, so maybe the Philly faithful will come out and maybe we'll be talking about a win after this game, but we will wait and see. Contest is tonight at 7 p.m. in Philadelphia. It's the Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long. Thank you all so much for tuning to Locked On 76ers, and we'll see you next time.